Okay guys, welcome to the last lesson of this first module. In the previous lesson, you made a direct comparison between your monthly income and your monthly expenditure. This was your moment of truth, your opportunity to honestly and objectively identify whether you spend more or less than you earn. Now, this can be a really tough reality to face, but it is a necessary step if you are to truly take control of your finances. So often I see people and they just don't want to do this. They don't want to face up to reality. They know things aren't going well, but they just trying to stick their heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening. This is just such a ridiculous way to deal with it because it will catch up with you, and when it does, it's going to be that much worse. So good on you for getting in, looking at your income, looking at your expenses, and making that comparison so you know where you stand once and for all. Most of the coaching clients I work with have a deficit when they first go through this process, so don't be hard on yourself if this is you. Now that you have a thorough list of all your expenses, it is time to go back through each of these expenses, jar by jar, expense by expense, and see where you can reduce or even cut out expenses. In this lesson, I'm going to take you through the 5 most common areas of overexpenditure, and I'm going to talk to you about the strategies you can use to reduce spending in each of these areas. Thomas Chandler Halliburton once said, "No one is rich whose expenditure exceeds his means, and no one is poor whose incomings exceed his outgoings." This is the golden rule of money management. If we want to get ahead financially, we need to consistently spend less than we earn. I will often have clients who have managed to bring their budget deficit down from a rather large figure to a very small figure and feel really pleased with themselves. And they should feel pleased with themselves, but the problem that we've got, even a small deficit will ultimately end in a financial cliff. When we consistently live with a budget deficit, there will inevitably come a crunch point where we are out of money, out of credit, and out of time. So as you go through your expenses, you need to do everything within your power to ensure you can consistently spend less than you earn. Okay, so what I want to share with you now is the 5 most common areas of overexpenditure that I see as a budget coach. These are the areas we typically waste the most money, but fortunately are also the easiest to do something about. No surprises here. The first area of overexpenditure is our lifestyle expenses. Over the last 10 years, there's been a horrendous case of lifestyle creep. Our expectations for life have grown way out of proportion with what we earn. Things that were once considered luxuries or special treats 10 to 15 years ago have now become an expected part of our daily routines. The daily coffees, the bought lunches, the dinners out, takeaway and shopping trips to the mall. They have become such a part of our daily routine that we no longer stop to consider how much we are really spending. My experience is that these daily rituals cost people hundreds of dollars every month and ultimately rob you of the things that are most important to you. What you need to start doing is looking at these expenses objectively. Work out how much you are really spending and decide if you are really happy spending that much money. Let's look at some strategies I use to help my clients really take control of these lifestyle expenses. The first thing is we need to be aware of where we are really spending. Having been through Module 1, you should now have an excellent idea of how much you spend on your lifestyle expenses. This comes as a rude shock for most people because this sort of spending typically just happens on automatic pilot, and it's scary how much those little bits really add up. Once you've identified how much you're spending, you need to sit down and work out what you think is realistic and reasonable. You don't want to cut out the fun stuff altogether, but I typically find people can cut back their lifestyle spending significantly and often without really noticing it. The second strategy that I use with my clients is perhaps the most powerful strategy I use to help them save money, and that is to isolate their everyday spending into a separate everyday bank account. This is the only expense category I isolate, but your everyday jar spending accounts for over half your transactions every month. By isolating this money, you are giving yourself both the physical boundary of the budget and the amount of money that's actually left in the bank account. The idea being that you give yourself that money, that's all you've got, and once it's run out, bad luck, it's baked beans and mashed potatoes for the rest of the month. The third thing you need to look at doing is planning your meals. You will be amazed at how much money gets wasted because we don't plan our meals each week. I will discuss this a little bit more later in this tutorial. The fourth thing you should do is identify unhealthy routines that have become part of your daily life. The trips past the bakery or coffee shop on the way to work, the catching up with friends for lunches or coffees, the breakfast out every Saturday or Sunday morning, going to the mall as a leisure activity. Many of these routines are not only unhealthy for our waistlines, but they are also really unhealthy for our wallets. And don't just stop at trying to eliminate unhealthy routines. Be purposeful and replace them with a healthy routine. Find activities that don't require spending money or eating lots of yummy food. Remember, your future is the sum of today's habits. Work on cultivating habits you need to create the future you want. The next area of overexpenditure is groceries. Now, this often surprises people because we all need to eat, but at the end of the day, we spend so much more on groceries than we need to just because of lack of planning and lack of routine. Here are some strategies you might want to consider when it comes to grocery shopping. Firstly, if you don't already, you need to sit down and plan your meals for the week. You need to sit down and go, okay, here are 5 or 6 meals that I'm going to eat this week, and identify the ingredients. Look at what you've got in the fridge, look at what you've got in the pantry, and put together a shopping list and then shop to that list. Shop just once a week, or at worst, you might want to shop twice a week just so you can pick up some extra fresh milk, fresh bread, and perhaps some fresh fruit. And a really obvious one, don't shop when you're hungry. This is a really big one. We all know why, but here are 3 obvious reasons. When you go to the shops when you are hungry, you are far more likely to leave with pizza than you are salad. Secondly, you are more likely to buy food that you can cook the fastest, and therefore it's generally more expensive and potentially less healthy. And thirdly, when you go shopping when you are hungry, you are far more likely to be enticed by those chips, chocolates, or ice cream strategically placed on the way out. What should have been a shop of $30 easily becomes a shop of 40 or 50. So be purposeful about shopping at a time when your brain and not your stomach is making the decisions. Another big strategy for reducing your grocery expenditure is to establish a routine as to how and when you will shop. Write your list and try to go to the same shop at the same time every week, and obviously not at a point when you are hungry. Typically straight after breakfast is a great time to go. Finally, if you are struggling to manage your grocery budget, try doing the weekly grocery shop with cash. I know it's a bit out there, but this is the way people used to shop. You will be surprised at how cutthroat the decisions become about what gets into the basket when you know you only have so much cash. Dun & Bradstreet have done research into card spending and have found that on average, people spend 19% more when they shop with a card than when they shop with cash. Simply because a card gives you that sense of, well, it doesn't matter if I spend an extra $5 or $10. But if you have cash, you are going to be dead sure that you get to the cash register with less in your trolley than you have cash in your hand. Now, the next area of overexpenditure that is huge in our culture is grooming. We spend so much more on clothes, shoes, cosmetics and hair than we need to. If your budget is in a deficit situation, then this is often a great place to start when looking to cut back. Here are some strategies I often discuss with my clients. The first one is always go to the shops with a plan. Before you go to the mall, know what it is you need, have it written down, and shop to the plan. The worst thing you can say to yourself is, "Oh, I'm just going to the mall to see if there's anything I need." You will always find something, and you can be sure it's not going to be something you need, it's going to be something you want. Shop with a plan. The second thing which flows on from that is avoid shopping as a leisure activity. Do not go down to the mall as part of your weekend downtime. Shopping centres around the world have spent billions on research. They know that if they can get you through the door, then they can get you spending money, even if it's just coffee and cake. The third thing to do is set yourself a realistic grooming budget and then enjoy spending it. The powerful thing about a budget is that it gives you permission to spend without guilt. But what you allow for your grooming budget needs to be realistic and fit in with that whole strategy of we must spend less than we earn. Okay, the next one is a touchy one, but I'm really firm on this. Don't pamper your kids. Don't let them talk you into having cuts and colours and designer jeans when they're teenagers. Firstly, it's unlikely your budget can sustain it. Secondly, and way more importantly, is it sending your kids the wrong message on so many levels and setting them up for financial disaster in the future. Your kids need to know that there is only so much money and that it needs to be managed carefully. If you are allowing them to have designer clothes and haircuts at a young age, then they are going to want to maintain that image throughout their lives. When they leave home and these sorts of costs become their responsibility, they are going to be in for a real shock. As a budget coach and financial advisor, I am seeing a huge rise in the personal debt levels amongst 18 and 25-year-olds as they leave home and try to maintain that standard of living previously afforded them by their parents. So let your kids know that there is a budget and that it does not stretch to designer clothes and haircuts. It will help your budget and provide them with some really, really valuable lessons for the future. Now, the beauty of budgeting to a system like Grandma's Jars is that it allows you to allocate money to expenses like grooming, and whatever does not get spent one month accumulates to the next. You can go 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, even 12 months without spending on grooming, and that money just accumulates. And when the sales roll around, you can take full advantage of it and enjoy every minute of it. You should never need to pay full price for anything. If you manage your money well, if you manage your jars well, you should always be able to buy things on sale. Okay, the fourth area of overspending is gift giving. Without any form of boundary, it is so easy to unintentionally spend thousands of dollars more than you planned over the course of a year. Hopefully you've completed the gifts list that came with the budget worksheets. This is often one of those, whoa, do I really spend that sort of money experience, because very few people really know how much they spend on gifts. Once again, it's $50 here, $100 there, $30 for kids' birthday parties and so on. It's amazing how much it adds up. So if you haven't completed the gifts list yet, please take the time to do it and make sure you put some thought into it. So often we spend lots of money because we feel obligated to, and this is such a terrible waste of money. Never let the expectations of others determine how much you will spend on a gift. Start by identifying what you can afford and then determine what you are happy to spend. Once you know what you want to spend, then take the time to consider what would be a meaningful gift for each person. A meaningful gift will beat expensive any day. Transfer your gifts list to a spreadsheet or a workbook and use it to keep track of who you will buy for, how much you want to spend on them, and what your ideal gift would be for each of them. Use this list to guide your spending throughout the year. If you know what you want to buy, you will be far more attuned to the specials that come up. If you're from a large family, perhaps you could suggest adopting a Kris Kringle approach to presents. Now, I know no one wants to be seen as the cheapskate in the family, but you will be surprised how many families are choosing to do Kris Kringle as a way to escape the Christmas madness. Don't be afraid to bring it up. You'll be surprised how many other people actually agree with you. And finally, as you create your gifts list, don't forget to add others onto your list. These nameless others will inevitably make themselves known throughout the year as they announce their engagement, or that they're pregnant, or that they are leaving the workplace. We can't anticipate who or what, but you can be certain there will be more opportunities to give than we can anticipate, so it's better to be prepared. The last area of overexpenditure I will discuss in this tutorial is mobile phones. For an expense that didn't even exist 15 to 20 years ago, it is scary how much we now spend on our mobile phone plans. Here are some strategies to consider for keeping the cost down. Firstly, get the right plan. These days there is a plan for everyone. There should be no excuses for exceeding your caps. If you are routinely going over your cap, you are far better off spending $10 to $20 more a month on your monthly plan than incurring $50 in excess charges every month. The second thing you can do is monitor your usage. If you know you are running close to the limit on your cap for the month, be proactive, be purposeful. Cut back your usage for a couple of days so that you don't push beyond your cap. And please don't make the mistake of replacing your old handset every time your plan is up. Yeah, I know it's trendy to get the latest and the greatest, but hold on to your old handset and get a plan that suits your usage. Not only will you save on stretching out the life of your handset, but you'll also have far greater flexibility with the plan you get to choose. And lastly, have a look at your habits. Ask yourself, can I pull back on the way I use my phone? Do I need to text as much? Do I need to download as much data when I'm out and about? Especially if I've got a perfectly good computer at home with internet access. Just think about the way you're using it. Again, this is part of those routines of daily life where $10, $20, $30 a month just dribble through our fingers and we never really get the value for it. In summary, we've had a quick look at the golden rule. We must not spend more than we earn. And we reviewed 5 areas of common overexpenditure. And while none of these individual strategies are earth-shattering, cutting back $20 here and $50 there adds up to hundreds over the course of a month and thousands over the course of a year. Your homework. Yep, you've got it. Go back through your expenses, expense by expense, and consider, do I need this expense? If I do need it, is there a way to reduce it? Or is there a cheaper alternative? Every budget has leaks, places where we know we could be saving money but have been too lazy to do anything about it. Well, it's time to get proactive, time to get smart. You work too hard to make the money, it's time to plug those leaks.